Yo, what's going on, everybody? Ghost here. Today I am bringing you guys another comparison between the buffed Krig and nerfed Amax. Now this is, I think, the fourth comparison video that I've made on these two specific weapons, and I mean, I don't know, they just keep getting changed. Something always has to change with these weapons, and over the past like 2 months, just a lot of changes has occurred to both these weapons, which has prompted all of these comparison videos. I don't mean to milk this specific comparison, but you know, when stuff changes and questions start rising, like, you know, I have to make these type of videos so we can, you know, get a better understanding of what's going on. And with this recent update, it pretty much made like the whole just Warzone scene just flip upside down, because there's a lot of things going on right now, a lot of weapons being tested out, a lot of weapons being considered the best, and we'll talk about that shortly. But before we get into it, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 2K. We just hit 1.69, so we are about 310 away from that 2,000. So help a brother out, that'd be very appreciated. Also, if you guys could do me a favor and go follow my Twitch, always goes_. We are 9 followers away from 200, so that'd be great if we could hit that. But with that being said, man, let's get into the comparison. And here we have the recoil pattern for the Krig. As you can see, it's nothing too crazy, a very straightforward pattern, and the development of this recoil is pretty slow, so it's very easy to control, making this a low recoil weapon or no recoil weapon. And now with this new optic rework, just using this gun at very long ranges is much more effective now. See, back then I believe that the Krig's one downfall was the fact that it couldn't really go those deep ranges, because the sight was weird, and it just, like, the shots didn't feel like they were hitting. And now that the optics were reworked and are a lot more usable, or a lot more accurate, it just makes those ranges a lot more achievable. And when I mentioned the buff to Krig earlier, that's just what I meant. It didn't receive an actual buff to the weapon, it just received, like, an attachment received a change that makes it so the Krig is now better. But that really applies to all ARs or LMGs, or just weapons that are going to benefit from those optic sights being reworked. So all of them, in a way, got a buff. And now that the Krig had this buff and the Amax got a slight nerf, it wasn't like a crazy nerf. It was a damage nerf, but it would only apply to headshots. So body shots is going to feel the same. Headshots are just going to feel a little bit weaker by like one bullet, which isn't all that much of a difference, considering the fact that we literally, in the last update where the Amax got nerfed, it received a damage nerf that only applied to by one damage profile. And some people felt the change kinda, but overall the change felt non-existent. And I gotta be honest, even now with this supposed nerf of the Amax, it kind of feels the same, because, you know, I wasn't really getting crazy amount of headshots before the nerf, and now with the nerf, like, you know, I feel like it's really not gonna impact me that much. But I will say that I think the Krig now, you know, back then it was somewhat of a competitor. I think it was very viable against the Amax, but like, it just wasn't as good as Amax. But I think now, like, with this slight nerf to the Amax and this slight buff that the Krig received because of the optic rework, I think the Krig now is a lot closer to the Amax than it was before this update, which is good. But we always want competition at that AR level, because the Amax has been considered untouchable for a while now, and even, you know, all these constant nerfs, these constant changes to other ARs, you know, the Amax kind of remains on top, and people just don't like to steer away from it. I have been seeing some developments though, things like the Farah, even the 8K. Like, I've just been seeing other developments of other ARs potentially challenging the throne of the Amax. Because right now, I gotta be honest, I think the Krig is really good, and again, this optic makes it 10 times better than it was before. But I think at the end of the day, the Amax, just solely because of the damage, is just, I think, more favorable for me. The recoil of the Krig, though, the control and all that, like, might make people steer towards it, which is fine, because it's a really powerful weapon for the amount of recoil that it has. It feels like, I would say, kind of like a Growl, a stronger version of the Growl, which is great. You know, and the Growl is a favorite weapon for a lot of people out there. And I think that the Krig is most similar to the Growl. Maybe even, not maybe, definitely a little better than the Growl. And to be honest, the only thing I would put the Krig over the Amax in would just be accuracy and control. I think every other aspect the Amax just, I wouldn't say like completely dominates it. It's just, but it's definitely like a lot more favorable compared to the Krig. But with that being said, man, let's get into the Amax. And here we have the recoil pattern for the Amax, which, as you can see, when I mentioned that I would put the Krig over the Amax in action control, this is what I meant. Like, that was a clear difference, almost 2 times the recoil by that recoil pattern that this Amax has over the Krig. And a lot of people some people say that they aren't capable of using the Amax because they can't control the recoil, and which, you know, that's totally fine. You know, there is some people who can't control the recoil of the Amax. And to be honest, I think if the next nerf, if they're going to nerf the Amax again, which at this point I think it's going to happen, just because I don't see the Amax getting dethroned as the most used AR right now. Like, I think that the Krig will increase in popularity and usage, but I still think that the Amax will be the most used AR in the game, or the most used primary in the game. Unless the Farah turns out to be, like, just that much more crazier than the Amax. But I'm not really sure about the Farah. I haven't used it quite yet. I've only seen a little bit of gameplay of the new Farah, and, you know, look like it rips, but I'm not, you know, I haven't personally used it. I can't give you my own opinion about it, so I can't wait to start using that. But again, this Amax just, I don't think it received that big of a change. It just made it so it's 1 bullet weaker at those ranges for a headshot, and that's like, didn't even apply to all ranges. It just applied to the farther ranges, which is whatever. At the end of the day, if you catch someone in the open field, it won't matter how long it's going to take. You're going to kill them. So I don't know. I think if they were to nerf it again, I think this time they should look at possibly increasing the recoil a little bit more to make it that much more harder to use, because I think that will steer away so many more people away from the gun. And look, I have no problem against the Amax, but at this point, if they're willing to go through 2 nerfs, I don't see them stopping until they completely destroy the gun at this point. Like, I know they're trying their best to not destroy the gun, but if it keeps remaining on top and they don't want it to be at the top, I think at some point they're just going to have to chalk the weapon, which is going to be sad if that day does come. But that's what I'm predicting, given of their recent patterns. Which, you know, I won't really care. I feel like I can use any weapon. I won't really miss the Amax. Don't get me wrong though, the Amax was definitely a fun weapon, but, you know, if it becomes a Krig meta or a Farah meta or something like that, I won't mind it. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't mind it. At the end of the day, it's just another cycle of meta and a different dominant weapon, which is, you know, great for the game. As long as the gun isn't completely broken, I think having just different dominant weapons at different point of times in Warzone isn't bad for the game. As long as it's not like a DMR or AUG, then we should be fine. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm not like 100% saying that it's gonna get nerfed, but just literally basing it off the pattern, I think it will, and so it can finally get dethroned. Because don't get me wrong, man, you know, the Krig is good, and I keep saying this, it's good, but like in terms of it becoming the #1 AR, I don't think that's gonna happen. I do consider it to be a top 3 AR. And for some people, it will be that #1 AR for them. But just, I guess for the general Warzone population, the Amax will be, like, still that dominant weapon. It's going to be the gun you're going to see streamers main. It's going to be the gun that's YouTubers will main. People, when they play tournaments, it probably will be the gun that gets main. Like, it's just that much more powerful than, I guess, any AR. Like, it's not untouchable, but it is at the same time, if that makes any sense. Like, it's not untouchable to the point where, like, you can't outgun it with certain weapons, but, like, it just feels like it's not, no other gun is capable of being that much better than the Amax. Or if you use a gun, you're like, I'm just better off using the Amax. That's, like, I think how the Amax currently fits into our Warzone meta. It's kind of interesting, though. Like, again, it's not too dominant to the point where this is what you have to use in order to compete. But at the same time, it's that dominant where it feels like no other gun could really overcome it. And to be honest, I am very curious to see what's going to happen with the primary meta of Warzone, given the fact that the new season comes out in about a month. And if they're that, I guess, determined to make changes to a gun like the Amax, I'm curious to see what they're going to buff or nerf coming in the future. I'm hoping in the season, is it season 3 or season 4 update, they decide to finally explore Modern Warfare weapons or Modern Warfare ARs to buff them a little bit more. And if they do that, if they decide to go through with the 3rd Amax nerf to the point where it makes it a lot more obtainable in terms of like weapons catching up to it, it's gonna be very, very interesting. Like, if you guys think the meta right now is the best, I'm telling you, if they diversify that primary weapon or the primary weapons, it's going to literally be the best meta to ever come to this game. If the primary and secondary metas are all just have a lot of diversity, we're gonna be in for such a fun time at Warzone. Because right now, I believe that the Amax is a dominant weapon. Like, I feel like over 50% of your lobbies use it, and as opposed to the secondaries where, yeah, you see a lot of bullfrogs, but there is a lot, and I mean a lot of secondaries that people use. A lot more diversification in that secondary column than the primaries. But if the primaries receive a similar change like how the secondaries did, whew, we're going to be in for a good time. But with that being said, let me know what you guys think about this recent update. Where do you guys personally rank the new Krig and the new Amax? And yeah, man, thank you guys for watching. See you guys later. Peace.